morning and afternoon. It's Wednesday. That means only one thing. Welcome back to the Sharing Show, Season 2. Today, I'm joined with David, better known as the Workday Sharing Guy, Denise, and we have, unfortunately, no Logan with us today. So we have a very packed show, lots of guests. So let's get straight to it. Today, we are using Zoom as ever, and just want to remind you that if you want to interact with us on the show and the rest of the panelists, please make sure you select all panelists and all attendees when you go into the chat. We want to make it fun and interactive, so please make sure you change that setting now. And I'm going to now pass it straight over to you, Denise.
Thank you, Kane. Our Kahoot is having a little issue this morning. So we're just going to do it from here, and David's going to read the question, and then if you'll just answer in the chat.
Right. Okay. So that's I'm going to go back to what Kane just showed you. Make sure when you're answering in the chat that you're answering to all panelists and attendees. So make that switch now. And here's the Kahoot survey question, which means there is no right answer, right? We're just doing a survey. So how many Workday releases have you done? Or what was your very first Workday release? Is this it, 2020 R1? Is this your first Workday release? Or have you started in the Workday 30s? Or did you start in the Workday 20s? Or did you start with Workday 3? That's Rome Plus. Okay, and all we need here is for Rain Man or Rain Woman to collect all those. And we'll show you the graph here in a second. Okay, I'm joking about the graph. Okay, thank you for your input. People hopefully can see the chat and see everyone else's answers. And that's it for Kahoot, since Kahoot had technical difficulties this morning.
Well, thank you for your answers. Up next, we have David, the sharing guy.
Okay, hi everybody. This is David again. Welcome to Season 2. A lot of things have changed here for Season 2, but one thing has not changed. My disclaimer, I'm still not a Workday employee. I still was hired by Workday back in 2007 as employee 149. It's still the case that my views do not represent Workday. And actually at this point, if Workday made me an offer to come back, I'd have to change the disclaimer unless it was written up some way differently. So I'm not a Workday employee. My views, everybody's sharing, they're just sharing. These are customers sharing with each other. This is not training, right? So, you know, we're just representing ourselves here. So I was part of the Workday training team at one point. So I'd like to say I highly recommend the Workday training. I wrote a fair amount of that stuff myself. Now, I'm also on a mission to help as many Workday customers as possible. I see over 80 people here on, live here, and hundreds of people watching. So we also had a huge share-a-thon in Orlando. So anyway, my mission to help as many Workday customers as possible, it is working out pretty nicely. Although there are more things that I do, not just the sharing show. So share-a-thons, tomorrow is an ACA share-a-thon. So we're going to hear from a couple people about that. But then tomorrow, make sure to tune in if you have any interest at all in ACA. Then, not much of a break for me, on Monday, there is an intro to Calc Fields Share-a-thon. Thank you to my friends over in Europe who starting that and then continuing that interest in getting people's knowledge of Calc Fields up higher than the intro level. Now, once you know intro level, you might want to actually start doing hands-on in your tenant and learn. And so that's why I have two things listed here. You will need to contact Denise or myself if you're interested in joining our workshops. The workshops are smaller. I posted something on LinkedIn. We have 8 seats available for the intermediate, which is starting on the 11th. It's 2 days, 11th and 13th of February. And then we go into advanced a week later. That's only 1 hour each day. And that's it for the disclaimer.
Thanks, David. Our first guest is Mandy from Ohio with a question about Calc Fields.
Hi, so my ask, I feel, is pretty simple, but I've been doing Workday for 10 years and I'm quite familiar with Calc Fields, but over the 10 years, a lot of new ones have popped up. And I think what helps me most is having examples of how to use them, real life scenarios. So that's kind of what my ask is just getting some real life scenarios around certain ones that are newer, more advanced ones that I wouldn't even know what to do with.
Okay, so now I actually took here your list and put it into a bullet list in case anybody in the chat wants to jump in and say, hey, I know one of these really well. Here's a simple example. This is all about sharing, right? The show is not as interactive. Everybody's on mute except for all of us who are sharing or asking. So I want to thank you for the ask. Do you want to add anything else to what you had said? Because I'm going to go back to your slide, Mandy. It's like, I agree. Like, I don't know all 34 of these, like the back of my hand. I know a fair amount of them, but the ones that are newer and then the ones that are less common, they're a mystery here, right? So I'll be the first to admit I don't know all of these that you've listed. Okay, I will tell you though that the band, like evaluate expression band, we did hit some of these in a challenge to do Roman numerals for a date. So we also, we have some examples of prompt for value. So as people are putting into the chat good examples for these, I'm gonna give you one, the one on the bottom, some related instances. The pattern I see for that, Mandy, is whenever you need to get an average, you have a list of things, like a list of salaries or a list of numbers of some sort, currencies or numbers. You need to add them up and then you need to divide by the count. So if somebody has 4 children and their ages are 1, 2, 1, 2, 4, and 5, you would have to add those up, and then you also have to use one called count related instances, which I see you didn't list. And so you would sum up those numbers, divide by 4, and you would get the average 3. So that's one very popular use of sum related instances. I'll stop there and let you look in chat for several others. Anything else like on this slide? Is there any one particular one from that list that you would like help with?
I don't think so. I mean, aggregated related instances I've seen used, but I guess I never know when to use it. Same with like some related instance, which maybe they're somewhat related. I think those ones are ones that I feel like could have a lot of use cases if I really understood when I needed to use them. So I guess maybe those ones. I mean, the other ones I just don't even know anything about. So I'm going to look through these messages and see what people have to say.
All right, awesome. Thank you for the ask.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mandy. There's tons of people answering you in the chat, so that's great. Up next, we have Brenda from Arizona with midpoint pay from grade profiles.
Hello, everyone. If you've seen any of my presentations in the past, you know I tend to work from this very large unfilled positions report that we use for forecasting. And we ran into a nice little scenario last year because, as most of you or many of you know, it is recommended you don't put pay rates directly on positions. So forecasting unfilled positions becomes difficult. And then in our situation, we do not put pay ranges directly on our job profiles. We put the pay grade, and then we have the pay grade profile that has ranges for low, medium, midpoint, and high. So in order to be able to forecast the cost of these unfilled positions, we needed to come up with a way that we could grab the midpoint range from the position grade profile and show it on the position. Within our report, if we have the pay rate from a job requisition for an open position, we use that. If not, then we go and we grab that midpoint range. And our profile is based on location, whether the position is for exempt or non-exempt, and whether the role is within our sales organization or not. So we start out with this first top-level calc field here. Very straightforward calculation. You can see it's got a default value where it's going to grab it off of the job requisition. So we do try to get those associated as early as possible, but before that happens, it will look to see if there is no pay from the rec, it then goes into that evaluate expression comp midpoint, and that's where things get interesting. So like I said, only available for us on grade profiles. There's a lot of multi-level lift to bring things through. And it starts here. So we default the value to $0 because if a position doesn't have all of the elements needed, we don't want a guess made. We want to show that $0 so people know that the position does not have all of the information that we expect it to have. And then we do some step throughs. The true falses are based on information that are coming off of the position and profile. And then we are looking at what we've lifted through from the grade profile to the job profile and then over to the position. So the first thing with those true falses, so this is that true false to see which of those expressions we're going to use. We look at it based on location. As you can see here, we put San Francisco in a bucket on itself for our own purposes, and then the rest of the country, we tend to do the same. Then we look at that job exempt and then whether or not the comp grade is sales. So, and then we come and we look at that where we've lifted the midpoint over. You can see we're looking it up, bringing it over from the compensation grade and returning the midpoint off of the compensation grade that's on the job profile. So, and then here, this is where we're grabbing that midpoint. The really interesting piece is where we look at that extract single instance. And so we're looking through every one of those based on this condition that's very similar to those same criteria. Where is it located, whether it's salary or whether it's hourly, and whether or not they're sales. So we have those eligibility rules. So when we use this, we've got to I had to make sure that everything that I was pulling off of the position and job profile matches up exactly with the eligibility rules that we have on the compensation grade profile. And that's where those multiple criterias, and I had to do the true false statements on each side of the fence, so to speak, so that they would then match up.
Oh boy, okay, I went forward a little bit fast. So Brenda, thank you so much for this great Calc field examples. Let's just take a brief second. Anything in the chat? And Brenda, are you able to stay after the official end of the show for open mic in case anyone has any questions for you?
Yes, I can.
Okay. Okay, I think something just came up in the chat, so it might be easier for you to go ahead and move to the chat. We'll move on to the next guest. Brenda, unless there's anything else?
Nope, that's it. Thanks,
okay.
everyone.
Thank you again.
Thanks again, Brenda. Up next, we have Leslie from California with an update on the ACA Share-a-thon.
Good morning or afternoon for everyone. Are you ready to talk about ACA? If so, then you should join us tomorrow at 9 a.m. Pacific time to go over how companies such as mine use Workday for ACA reporting, both for 1095-C and for 1095-A, which delivery to the IRS. My presentation is mainly going to focus on auditing, how to make sure that the information in Workday matches what should be reported both to the employee and to the IRS. So if you are interested, please join us tomorrow, 9 a.m.
All right, Leslie, thank you for leading the way with this ACA. And are you ready? That's a good question, right? I was going to do a cheer. Give me an A, give me a C, give me an A. What's that spell? But that's a little bit obvious. But let's do a little history here, right? So for those who didn't hear when we mentioned this in season 1, when we had an open enrollment share-a-thon, Leslie, do you remember we asked people what they wanted to do next as far as it was a benefits group, right? What were you most interested in? I think just about everyone voted for ACA.
That's correct. And also because as a part of open enrollment, you're supposed to build out your measurement for ACA. So it is very tied hand in hand to open enrollment. And it was one of the biggest topics in the open enrollment share-a-thon. And that's how this came about.
Okay, now in case people missed it, this is tomorrow, right? It starts as the same time that we just started the sharing show. So we'll see many of you tomorrow.
That's correct. See you tomorrow.
Thanks, Leslie. And if you have not already registered for that, you can find the link on Community. So up next, we have Kelly from Texas with some ACA resources.
Hi, so we just wanted to share, I wanted to share some ACA resources, or really just links to some community links. The very first one is probably the most important, because this is where Workday for the filing year 2019 has been posting updates about enhancements and deadlines and date changes and things like that. And there's also a lot of good back and forth among community members about questions and answers and things here. So I would highly recommend following that page. And then the second one is in reference to the ACA connector. So if you're getting ready to set up or have already set up and need help troubleshooting that ACA connector, you can follow that link. And then the other ones are really more about the deadline that it has been updated, an ACA checklist, and if you're still needing to set up your ACA measurement period or need troubleshooting tips, that last one is for that. And then on the next page, this is just a compilation of some links from around the web. There's links to the 1095C and 1094C IRS posts, where if you have produced your 1095Cs and you've got coding errors or questions about how the codes are being interpreted and things like that, that's where you can go to get the official information. And then there's a couple of great SHRM links, or links from SHRM, Society for Human Resources Management, about ACA dates for 2019, as well as that last article is on what to review for 2020.
All right.
And that is it.
Kelly, thank you. And now I know how to pronounce SHRM. It's different than how you pronounce ACA. So another thing, Kelly, for tomorrow's Share-a-thon, I know you were very active and answered many questions during the open enrollment Share-a-thon last year. Are you able to join the Share-a-thon tomorrow?
Yes, I will be there.
Nice. Okay. Thank you, Kelly, for your share.
All right, up next, we have Laura from Tennessee with our Community Corner.
All right, Laura, do you want to tell the story about the Community Corner?
Sure. So sometimes I'll go on Community and I see someone post something that they're thinking so big and they've pinpointed something so perfect. And I watch the thread and I'm sure everyone else is looking at it saying, oh, wow, that's exciting, but I have no idea what to answer. And so that's where I got the idea, so that we could do a little bit more sharing, a little bit more conversations. There are several posts on the issue of distinct candidates. Because you have to use the job application data source, or business object technically, this guy, even though this is an older post, he says it the best. So let's say you have a candidate who applies to a job with source A, and then a second job, source A, and then a third job, source B. Technically, you only want to count the candidate uniquely, but then he's had two different types of activity. We've had something similar looking at veteran statuses with candidates, which surprisingly can change, where they were an active military and they changed to being outside or retired. So some of these types of things boggle our brains. And I thought the Community Corner is a good way for us to beforehand say, hey, I saw this on Community. I really wish that we could talk about it. And then, you know, we bring it together and we have those kinds of conversations, and what are different people doing, and kind of like a theme. But to do that, we need people to share on LinkedIn, share on the sharing show, and say, for the Community Corner, I saw this, that would be really cool, or I saw that, or I posted this, but I haven't gotten any response. That way we can keep it topical and something people want to talk about.
Laura, I love this idea, right? When you mentioned it to me, I thought, okay, wait, this is perfect. We have a LinkedIn group. Not everyone could see everything that goes on in Community. There's just so much going on there. So the show is every 2 weeks. We're going bi-weekly. And so everybody here has 13 days in which to remember, if you see something on community and it wasn't answered, then go to the LinkedIn group for the sharing show and post the community link there and say, hey, I'd like to do this one on the community corner. You could also reach out to Denise or myself, and Laura, I believe, will help lead this 2 weeks from now as well. Laura, I have one more comment about how you mentioned this guy just says it so cleanly. I'm pretty sure that I saw that he is associated with a university or a educational institution where Dave Duffield is also involved. So that's kind of a nice connection there. All right, thank you, Laura.
Thanks, Laura. Up next, we have Mike from Philly with confidential requisitions and prospects.
Yeah, hi. Wanted to do a quick share because this is something that I've been thrust into on the recruiting side as of late. It's not a super new feature inside of Workday, but wanted to just share the confidential requisitions and prospects. The purpose of the confidential recs and prospects is really to keep a requisition limited to a small group of people. So typically when you set up the security here, you just do a very small set of domains, and it allows a candidate to apply for a secret via a secret URL, or you can create confidential prospects and create that job application manually. The positive here is that the position is created upon hire rather than in the early side of the requisition when the position normally is created. And really, I just put a couple of things here, the domains that you need to set up confidential recs and prospects, and the reminder to update those business processes. And you might want to do something like skip approvals for confidential recs, so there's not as many approvals, not as many hands touching a confidential requisition for an executive, for example. A little note there, anybody who's approving or touching that rec does actually need to see the details of the confidential rec, so you will definitely want to put them on those domains for confidential job requisitions. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, Mike.
Thanks, Mike. Up next, we have Indy from Texas with our 2020 R1 financials.
Yep, thank you. Thank you for having me on the show. So today's topic on the financials update is for 2020 R1. Workday is focused on operational excellence on the financial side. So there are a few exciting updates coming up in 2020 R1. One of them we wanted to highlight today is the credit card payments in customer portal. As we know, the customer portal already exists in Workday where customer contact can go in and do the self-service of viewing and downloading the customer invoices or checking the payment status. But with this new update, the customers will be able to pay their customer invoices directly using the credit card, providing convenience and time saving for Workday customers. It does have some requirements related to that. Development of the payment processing web application is required. Security setup is needed, along with some of the configuration related to worklets, as well as merchant setup for the provider and the accounts. And for more information, you can check out the community post related to this update. And we do have some more exciting updates that will be coming out on the newsletter as well from the sharing. Thank you.
Awesome. Yeah, thank you, Indy. Right. So there's more information right there. We're showing where on community, and then you had, I think, at least 2 others, if not more, that you're putting into a blog for the newsletter, right?
Exactly. Yep.
Yep. Okay. Thank you, Indy.
Great job, Indy. Thanks. Up next, we have Keith from Florida with our 2020 R1 assistant.
Hey, everybody. Thanks for the opportunity. Dave and I were talking recently just about some of the R1 new functionality, and one of the things we mentioned was Workday Assistant. Workday Assistant was initially demoed at Rising a year and a half ago, and as of R1 will be now generally available. And what it is simply a chatbot. And you may be familiar with chatbots on various customer websites, but essentially it will show up as this arrow shows on the lower right-hand corner. You click on that, And then you're going to see the first box on the left is what's going to come up. And it will do some general greeting to you, and then you can type messages in, and the idea is that you can ask questions. And initially, a lot of its focus is really around how to automate tasks. So when it was first demoed, it could do give feedback as well as request time off, and it works on the app on your phone, which is the right-hand, well, similar to the right-hand screenshot. But and on your phone, on the app, you can actually do verbal commands to it as well. But another thing that is really important to us as an organization is we have a lot of people that our general users struggle to remember the keyword commands they need to put in the search box. And so that Workday Assistant is getting much closer to being able to do full sentence searches. And so I'd encourage you to go into your preview tenant and turn it on and play with it. When you turn it on, you can actually select which security groups have access to be able to do this, and so that you can just let your admin people play with it, for example. Another caveat is it's only available in English, so if you're in a multi-language tenant, that limits its usefulness at the moment. There's a lot of cool stuff that they're going to be adding over the next year that we're excited about, and there's a little more about it in the newsletter that's going to be coming out as well. So if you want to know more, the best thing to do is just go into community and search on the word assistant. And there's a number of posts from the last 2 weeks. 2 of them have videos that are about 5 minutes long, and so it gives you a good run through of kind of what it can do at the moment. And another one is a roadmap of kind of the new things that they're hoping to add over the next year. So check it out.
Yeah, thank you, Keith. This is one of the new features in 2020 R1 that I'm most excited about. And Keith, when you sent me that link to a very short 4-minute video, it really shows everything, or it shows a lot, I would say. And if you combine watching that together with Keith's blog in the newsletter, I think you will understand a lot. And like Keith said, you go into preview and you can start playing with it. And in your blog, you talk more about the actual security and you know, more details of it, correct?
Yeah, that's correct.
Okay, thank you, Keith.
Thank you. Okay, up next we have 2020 R1 time zones with Tusit in India.
Hi guys. Good morning. Good evening. So, this is the one that I think I'm really looking forward to because of a couple of reasons. One, it is very personal. Like I work out of India, and when I'm doing a lot of role assignments or changes, I forget that as of now, it is based out of your tenant default time zone. And so what Workday is doing with 2020 R1, I think with the previous one, with Workday 33, they gave us an option to opt in. But with this one, they're making it mandatory for everyone. And what that does is it gives you an option to select which time zone you want to make changes, or sorry, which time zone you want to make changes effective as of. So if you visit the community page for this release, Workday says it's default setup, but you still need to do some setup for it. And that involves, going into your tenant setup and changing which time zone you want to default in as. But on the slide, I have what it looks like now versus what it will look like 2020 post the release, just to summarize it for you. But the community page gives more details on what you need to set up. There is one caveat is it does not include ISU accounts. So your ISU accounts will still work with based on the tenant default. So even if you set this up, ISU accounts will run based on the tenant default, right? So that's something that they, I don't think call out in that video, but if you go through the documentation, you see that it's called out there. But that's all I have. And there's more details in the blog post again for this one as well, on how to set it up, what are the differences, and just the summary of everything.
Yeah, thank you, Tusit. And also, right, very important that even though it's morning here or midday for some of us in some time zones, it's late at night for you. So thank you for taking the time. Also, this 2020 R1 newsletter, your blog, just similarly to the earlier blogs, you'll go into more detail there. And then this what we're seeing here on the screen, this will be on the YouTube channel. But I think you cover a fair amount in your blog, actually. I think you have one of the longest of the blogs. Thank you to see people. If you have questions, put those in the chat now. We're going to run just a few minutes long. But to see that, I don't think we'll hang out for too much longer for the open mic. To see that's up to you as you start to approach midnight. But thank you to see. Let's go now. So
thank you,
there's a newsletter, right? So now let's talk about another opportunity for sharing with 2020 R1.
All right, now we have Jerry from Montana, who's going to talk a little bit about our 2020 R1 Share-a-thon Dashboard.
Hi, everyone. So this dashboard we talked about in a little more detail on the Sharing Show episode 16, I think it was. But with the new release coming out, we thought it was a good time to kind of bring it out to your attention again. So this is a dashboard that's been created for this upcoming release. And what it's helping you do is track changes going through on the What's New report. So down at the bottom section there, you'll see the full What's New report. That's full extract out of Workday. But one of the things you don't easily see are when things change. So you take a look at it maybe at the start of your release, you notate what's going on, and then 3 days later something changes that maybe you don't notice because it's just kind of lost in the clutter. So up in that top left-hand side, every day we're doing basically a difference between that day and the previous day, and any changes that have occurred between those are called out on that changes report, which then you can then click on, and that will show you any What's New items that have changed. So either ones that have been added or ones that have been updated since the last time that it's ran. And then in the middle section there, helpful community links, also anything that clients have found useful for the upcoming release. So any What's New videos, maybe something important that you need to know about the release, those are all listed out there.
All right, Jerry, so I'm just going to go back to the upper left corner here. I think what you're telling us is you're going to run this What's New report and a filter that you put on it every day so that other people don't have to.
Right, exactly.
Yep.
And also, some people may not know that's an option that you can do.
Yeah, I think you actually for Workday 33, you wrote not only a filter for report, you wrote a blog about this as well, right?
Yes, that's correct.
Yep. Okay. All right. So thank you, Jerry. I think I'm going to go back just to this slide. It's a zoomed in of the upper left and then the bottom. And once again, this is the What's New report. Jerry's going to run this every day. And in the upper left corner, it'll show you here if there have been any changes to it. This is because on the bottom here, what you see is the exported Excel of the What's New report. A lot of people export that, and then they use that as they're going through the release and making sure everything's covered. But they might not realize that the reports change, and a feature that they thought was in isn't in, or the other way around. I do see a question in the chat about accessing the dashboard. Jerry, I'm going to go back. Do you want to just say something quickly about how to gain access to the dashboard?
I think so. The dashboard set up in a smart sheet, which we can share with you, and that access I think comes through Denise.
Yes. Okay. So Denise and myself, you could reach out to us. There's a survey monkey that you fill out just like you do for any of the share-a-thons to say you want access to this dashboard. Thank you, Kevin, for asking that question. And we're almost done. Thank you, everybody, for going just a couple minutes long.
So up next, we're going to do a quick update on the Workday 201 challenge that we've been working on for the stock.
Yeah, so this is, $200 and 1 penny, because way back when we started the sharing show, Workday had hit $200 exactly, but didn't break through. And so we had the opportunity to have this game to see who would pick the actual day that Workday broke through. And this is an old slide. On the right, you see those who joined the Movember team. They each got 5 guesses on the date. And you'll see here that, Denise has a page where you can make the guesses. Now we've closed those guesses, and it's a good thing we did. Now, let me explain that Denise and I, not knowing that the analysts were going to completely misunderstand not only Workday's investment in the future, but in the sharing, the customer sharing movement, right? Like, how could the stock be dropping? We're having more and more people joining in with all the sharing fun. But that drop is the day that Denise and I were in Orlando at Rising, handing out pieces of paper, asking people to guess. And somebody said, well, wait, did you know it dropped 20 points today? So let's take a closer look at that drop of 20 points on one of the first days in Rising. So on up above it, I'm going to move that chart on top of it. That chart is as of yesterday. And you can see the drop that happened during Rising. And sure enough, I'm just going to say the analysts got it wrong. We are now up and over where it was before it even dropped. And we're, you know, as of yesterday, pretty darn close to 200. Now I'm sticking to my guess, which is a very special day for the sharing show too, of February 14th. It's a special day for some Workday executives as well. So here's the good news for everybody, which is the fact that Workday has recovered. The idea is that someone's going to win an Apple Watch when Workday hits 200 and a penny. But I realized I had an opportunity to do something Dave Duffield does, which he explains to people that he invests in Workday customers because they're probably smarter than other companies because they chose Workday. So I invested in Workday itself. And now that Workday's recovered, it's starting to rain Apple Watches. So you see this picture from the first Apple Watch we gave away in Vegas at the Share-a-thon. And we gave away Apple Watches in Orlando. And now during the sharing show, so tell your friends if you'd like, during season 2, we're going to give away, me, thank you to the Workday stock, I was able to sell enough Workday stock that in this recovery that I myself am going to be giving away here, not 3, but 4 Apple Watches during season 2. We're not going to announce in advance which sessions in which we do it. And I'm glad we're not doing it on this one because we ran into an issue with the Kahoot, but we will give away, I will be giving away 4 Apple Watches during season 2.
That's great, David. We would like to thank our co-sponsor, Humanity.
All right, and a few words. So Dave from Humanity wasn't able to join. Maybe he'll join one of the next shows in season 2. But Humanity is intuitive, dynamic employee scheduling. That was very easy for me to read. Dave will, of course, say much more about it. So thank you to Humanity. And it says co-sponsor because, of course, Dovetail is the other co-sponsor. And we're going to have more sponsors coming during season 2.
All right, we're going to wrap up here with our quiz Kahoot. Since Kahoot's still down, David's going to read the question, and then you can just answer in the chat.
Okay, all right. So I'm just going to say first answer into the chat. There's no Apple Watch being given away. It's just like, you know, you get to claim that you were the first. Okay, so now here comes the question. And the answer, you could type red, blue, yellow, or green, is that the correct way of spelling the current, this upcoming Workday release? Which is the best way of spelling it? Is it spelled Workday R1? Is it spelled WD-R1? Is it spelled 2020 R1? Or is it spelled 2020 Release 1? How do you spell it? Now, everyone who gets the answer right, maybe you're looking at others in the chat, but it's hard to type faster than everyone else. Thank you for participating in this different type of a quiz Kahoot.
Well, another great show. There's a lot of information today, so make sure you join us for our LinkedIn group. Just search for The Sharing Show on LinkedIn. You will find me there and our nice little picture, and join us for updates.
Well, thank you, David and Denise, and special thank you to our guests for speaking on the show today. As always, we will publish this episode onto our YouTube channel, so you'll see all the previous season's episodes. I think there's 22 of them, and you will see this one up there shortly as well. Make sure you go over to YouTube, subscribe, and click the notifications icon so you get notified when it is published. We are going to have a quick open mic session after this show. So all that's left really is to say thank you everyone for joining us today, and we will see you in 2 weeks' time on the 19th. I'm going to end the show now and we'll come back for the open mic. So all that's left to say is everybody have a great work day.